Hi, everybody, and welcome to the seminar on compassion fatigue. I'm Kate Titus, and this is my best buddy, Gina Hansen. She's going to be talking to us about compassion fatigue, self-compassion, self-care, managing stress, all of those things that go into caring for a mobility challenged dog for the long term. You've got a spot up front if you'd like. Spot up here if you'd like. And all the folks that are watching us on YouTube, thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Let's do a quick intro for Gina. But before we get started with that, I'm going to tell you that our program today is going to be a little bit different than how we normally do it. Gina's going to walk us through about 20 minutes of really explaining what compassion fatigue is, so we're all on the same wavelength, using the same terms. And then we're gonna come together. We're gonna have a conversation for another half hour, 40 minutes or so, talking through really how that applies to pet parents. Gina does a lot of talking to organizations, shelters, things like that. So we're gonna bring it home to the individual pet parent during that time, and then you will have time in the last 15 minutes to ask whatever questions you would like. We'll also both be available by email if you have additional questions. So, Gina. Hi. So Gina and I sit on the Friends of PAC board. I've known Gina for a very long time, probably pushing 15 years now. Gina started at the Humane Society of Southern Arizona, was in charge of the Pet VIP program, which is the pet therapy program there. She developed the Comfort Dog program, which helps trauma, and also started a program called the Pets and Their Heroes, the PATH program, that partners veterans and active military men and women with PTSD or TBIs to learn how to train shelter dogs. She then moved over to PAC, where she managed the shelter's volunteer force. And if you know anything about PAC's volunteer force, that is a lot of volunteers. She also headed up their humane education and outreach efforts. She's now the volunteer resources manager at Habitat for Humanity Tucson, which very happy about. We sit on numerous boards in the community, so very much a giver to the community, and I appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
So take it away.
Thanks for having me. I do want to say I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but I do enjoy this subject, and I wanted to learn about compassion fatigue because, especially with the volunteers at PAC at the time, it's very stressful. There was no real learning or professional development or much then, and trying to help people through it. So I felt my job was to try to help the volunteers at the time, so they wouldn't quit on us, right? So I wanted to help them kind of learn when they needed to take a break and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I also got on this subject. But it's been really helpful for me too, because I've learned way back when things that I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that's why I left this job or changed careers. And to be honest, that's why I left animal welfare and went to Habitat for Humanity, because I just couldn't reconnect with things that I was doing, and we'll talk about that. As much as I love the pets, that's why I sit on the Friends of PAC board, so that's one way that I can stay involved. But I needed a break, and I finally realized it, and that's why I'm at Habitat for Humanity. But I still like to stay in touch.
See, the technology gods just got me again.
Or I can walk it.
All right, if you want to walk,
I can walk it. So again, like Kate said, this is just an introductory look at compassion fatigue and a little bit of burnout and how to kind of reconnect with everything, and we'll talk about that. So we're going to define compassion fatigue and compassion satisfaction, identify individual symptoms, and other factors that might contribute to how you're feeling, understand factors, and then of course some strategies that hopefully will help you manage that until we get into further conversations. So it's really important when you're feeling down and frustrated and all kinds of stuff to really check in with yourself. But unchecked symptoms can lead to a lot of things, a lot of health issues. It can lead to chronic stress, burnout, lacking empathy or compassion for others, for pets. I mean, you name it, you never know what it can bring you to do. It can lead you to ineffective work or unhealthy coping mechanisms, and also not being able to take care of your pets, maybe, or somebody that you love, a family member or friend, and you're just like, meh. And then, of course, leaving the work that you love, like I had mentioned. And then, of course, if you are managing your symptoms, that means that you can be fully present to who you're taking care of, which is really important, right? Because we're all here because we care about someone, a pet, whoever it is. We're here because we want to help ourselves so we can be better and help our pets. So you're connecting with the positive benefits of helping others. It helps you to be more energized, resilient, and perform ethical and effective work, as we've talked about. And then, of course, continue to do the work that we love. So there's a lot of definitions when it comes to compassion fatigue. You got a couple doctors over here saying this, a couple researchers over here saying this, but they all make perfect sense, actually. I mean, it's a natural consequence of stress resulting from caring for others. It can be a profound physical and emotional exhaustion from helping others. I personally it's a normal, predictable consequence of working in a helping field. And helping fields can be healthcare, animal welfare, taking care, and I don't know if it's a field, but we'll say it's our own little field, taking care of our own pets, right? And then, of course, the cost of caring for others who are in pain or helpless. So a lot of different definitions. If you connect with one over the other, great, but you'll hear lots of different things. You'll also hear that it's an occupational hazard. So it'll probably touch you at some point in your life, or now, or before, or after, if we care about others. Some factors that can help you with your compassion fatigue, meaning in a bad way, are primary trauma. So primary trauma is when something's happening to us directly, like right then, right? Like you got hit by a car, or something bad happened, right? It happened in that moment, and you're like, secondary trauma is probably one of the most. So secondary trauma and vicarious trauma are probably the two that contribute mostly to compassion fatigue. But secondary trauma, I'm sure you can recognize this now, is us seeing or bearing witness to those who are suffering, right? So some of us are bearing witness at home with our pets now. And it's constant because you live with them. They live with you. You see it all the time. And it eats you away. It's hard. Vicarious trauma, which can be a profound shift in our worldview. So with all the stuff that's going on in the world, I don't know how many of you just watch the news all day, on top of everything else, you're seeing some suffering, you're seeing not always the best things that come on the news, and that eats you away. And then maybe, something else is eating you away. You see, so for some of us who've worked in animal welfare, we see the suffering of the pets there on top of maybe a loved one. So it's vicarious trauma. And then PTSD. So for anyone that's experienced PTSD, that sometimes just doesn't go away. So all these trauma exposures can contribute to compassion fatigue. Compassion satisfaction is where we want to get to. We want to find pleasure and be happy and be able to do our job well, no matter what it is. If you practice self-care, that leads to joy and reward. So connecting with that, you have a higher satisfaction, you do better quality work, and you're being effective and ethical in the work that you do. And a big part of that is self-care. Self-care is so important, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail. But from all the research that's been done, self-care is a really big part of compassion satisfaction. So we'll kind of we will get into individual symptoms and contributing factors. We'll talk about professional help at the end. But some people are like, it's a disease, I've got a disease. But no, it's really just a set of symptoms that most of us can work with, do our self-care, and try to prevent or at least manage it. So symptoms, here we go. So we're going to talk about physical, behavioral, psychological. Everybody's symptoms are different. So when I go through these, maybe just in your mind, or if you have your little pad of paper, you can write those down or think about it like, oh yeah, I'm experiencing that, or I have experienced that. And this is a great time to start really thinking about it. Some of us can experience these on a chronic level, so it's just constantly happening, or persistent, like every day, all the time. So physical symptoms can be physical exhaustion. You can get headaches, migraines, insomnia or hyperinsomnia, any digestive, maybe your blood pressure is now going up, and fatigue. I think a lot of us start to feel fatigue when we start to feel these symptoms. But it can really cause a lot of different physical symptoms, and not everything that's on here. And we'll talk about that at the end too. And believe it or not, a lot of people who are experiencing physical symptoms are more prone to accidents. I've been there. I've done some silly things when it comes to just being exhausted or fatigued, right? Because you're so tired. And you can't believe that you tripped or you fell or you did something silly. Behavioral symptoms. A lot of us have anger, right? We have anger, silencing response, like you just don't want to talk to anybody. Somebody says something that makes you upset and you're just like, nah, I don't want to talk. I don't want to say anything. Maybe you want to avoid people or clients. And I say people or clients as if maybe sometimes this could happen in work related stuff. You want to isolate yourself. You might have nightmares or flashbacks that might go with previous PTSD or other traumas that you've had. Compromised care of who you're taking care of, which includes yourself. Inability to embrace complexity, addiction. So some of us are like, wine night every night because I'm stressed. We're just gonna drink. And you know, there's nothing wrong with having a glass of wine once in a while, right? But if it's every day or 10 times a day, that's a lot. And things that you should start thinking about. Impaired ability to make decisions. Sometimes when you get overworked or overloaded with everything, you just can't make a decision. You're just like, there's too much. I just can't do it. Personal relationships. Sometimes it starts to affect marriages or relationships with friends or work coworkers or whatnot, right? So all these things that you're experiencing. Exaggerated sense of responsibility, meaning, well, this person can't do this. I'm going to have to do it because I do it better, or it's not going to get done. So I'm just going to take care of it. And that also adds to your stress because now you're taking on more responsibilities. Difficulty concentrating and forgetfulness. So if you've ever had just so many tasks or things to do, you forget to take care of one thing versus the other. And that's really important. That's another really big symptom, actually. And then voicing excessive complaints, whether it's about coworkers, friends, or the job that you're doing, or the pet that you're taking care of. And this is an important one, just on a side note. If you have people in your life who are also kind of that excessively complain about things, that's not really going to help you, because then you're both like, and you're not really helping each other. So just think about who you're going to be talking to when you're expressing some of your feelings, which we'll talk about. Psychological symptoms, cynicism, resenting people, your pets, your responsibilities, intrusive imagery, things that you've seen, and that kind of can go back to the vicarious trauma or secondary trauma. Bottling up your emotions. And And I am not saying, hey, pour a bottle of beer into this glass. It's more like, don't keep your emotions bottled up. That drives us all crazy, right? And if we're able to get those emotions out in one way or another, which we'll talk about, it's really important. But a lot of people end up bottling up their emotions. I put a box here because when I worked in animal welfare, every time I saw a box or a trash can, I always said, there's an animal in there. There's something in there. And so that's vicarious trauma. But when I see it, I think about some of these psychological symptoms that I might have had back then. Feeling helpless or hopeless, which isn't good. Difficulty separating, your lifestyle at home or your responsibilities at home versus work or in other aspects of your life. Reduced ability to feel sympathy and empathy. Once you start getting just angry and other people might be coming to you about some of their problems, you're just like, I got my own stuff, leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you, and then that hurts their feelings, right? Hypersensitivity, like you see a cute little Christmas commercial and maybe start crying or something because you're just like, ooh, there's too much. And not developing nurturing relationships with others, which is really important. We need that support system. Man, sorry, that went by fast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me start by asking a question for everybody in the room and everybody that's watching on YouTube. How many of you are caring for a mobility challenged dog right now? Okay, and that counts our Shar-Pei friends. That definitely counts you. Okay. Shar-Pei fever is okay. All right, so that was quite a few of you. How many would you consider your dog to be in hospice care? Maybe they're getting toward the end. They're getting toward their seniors are a little bit older. Anybody there? Okay. All right. Excellent. And then how many of you have urinary or fecal incontinent dogs? Okay. So one. Okay. So I asked those questions because those are very different. You're going to experience very different things. You're going to have different challenges to get through. You talked about, one of the things you talked about was relationships within the family.
Yeah.
We actually had a veterinarian come in and see us, and she was working very, very hard to make sure her family didn't know that the dog was urinary incontinent, because she knew that was not going to go over well, and that the family was going to insist that she put the dog down. So I have other folks who come in. I'll tell you right now, we have probably 80%. Well, it's about the distribution of this room, women versus men. And we have a lot of women come in and say, you gotta help me do something. My kids don't like this. My husband doesn't like this. My boyfriend doesn't like this, or he won't help me do X, Y, Z. And to be honest, we've had guys say the same thing, but we just see more women. So we've all got personal stories, and we've all experienced the symptoms of compassion fatigue. So what I thought we would do in this remaining time is really more about how do we deal with it, right? So when we're talking about compassion fatigue, one of the big things is managing the stress. So can you give us an idea? I mean, we all think we know what stress is, but can you tell us a little bit more about stress and what that is, how that kind of applies to what we're doing?
Yeah, so you have acute stress, chronic stress, and then you've got your unmanaged stress. So acute, it's happening to you right then. Chronic, it's every day, it's over time, it's more long-term, which probably is most of us, right? It's more chronic. And then unmanaged stress just leads into all these terrible symptoms and stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah.
So you're, sorry.
No. So there's but a lot of us feel it through our bodies, right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so one thing to think about, we've all got our great bodies, right? And that's literally our warning system, where our bodies are with us all the time. That's how we know when we're stressed. So for me, when I know that I'm about to blow my top or just get like, I feel it right here in my neck. My shoulders get tight. Sometimes I get just like stomach cramps. And so those are signs and symptoms. So think about when you get stressed, just think about the first things that you feel, that your body feels. That's your early warning system right there. That's the best thing you can do. And as soon as you know it, learn it. Write it down if you have to, and just know that that's so important to pay attention to your body, and how you can deal with it right then.
So that can also have like psychological elements as well, because I know that when I started having compassion fatigue about 6 or 7 years ago. And I finally figured out what my warning was, that I had gone too far down the hole. I could feel my body getting harder. I could feel myself punching and doing this, but I also felt my empathy cup just go, whoop. There was a point. And I know that when I get to the point where a client comes in and they're looking for support, they're looking for empathy, and my brain is telling me, do I really have to sit here? That is when I need to back it off. I need to pay attention to what's happening. I try to catch it before it gets there. But mine is less body and more the impact of what the brain does. And I know that when I'm taking care of, say, Half Moon or Andy, or Helen now. So I now have I have 4 mobility challenge dogs at home now, 3 of which are urinary fecal incontinent. So there are some nights when I'm like, I really just want to go to bed. But I can't. I have to go pee and poop Half Moon, clean him up, change his diaper, put it back down. Do the same thing with Andy, the same thing with Joey. Thank God Helen doesn't need that yet. But I can't do that, right? And Kathy, my wife, is very, very helpful in that. But there's a sense of pressing down. Does anybody else feel that? That sort of like, oh, one more thing that I have to do. Yeah. So your body recognizing those warning. But then we also get into like trigger stacking, which is actually a dog training term.
Yeah.
Anybody heard trigger stacking? Know the term? Okay, go ahead, talk about that.
Yeah, it's literally just think of a dog. They see a dog across the street and they're like, bah, bah, bah. And then maybe 2 more dogs, or maybe you're yelling at the dog, and then maybe they see something else, or maybe sometimes people hit their dogs, which I'm not saying anyone does, but then they get really mad about that or sad. And I mean, there's just all kinds of different things. So for humans, think of it as the same way. When I think about trigger stacking, I'm more about like the animal shelter, because that's where you would see it mostly, because all the things that are happening to that one dog, multiple dogs. But for humans, it could be you wake up in the morning, before you do anything, you gotta poop your dogs, but you're late for work, or you have a meeting, or you know that you gotta go get gas, but now you're gonna be even later, and then you get to work, and then the pool emptied, or something.
Do not even.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Or somebody, is calling you out and said you made a mistake, or an employee did something, or your significant other. You've got all these things. So it's trigger stacking, but in that one day or in 1 hour, and then by the time whatever time rolls around, you're just like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm gonna blow up, or I'm gonna get mad, or I'm going to ignore you, or whatever, or I don't care about you right now. I have no empathy. I mean, all these different things just stack up just like that.
So, okay, so we've got the trigger stack. We know all this stuff happens. So how do we make a stress plan?
Stress plan. So if you can, in that moment, if something's happening, you're getting stressed, first ask yourself, all right, can I step away from this for a minute? Can I take a 10-minute break? Can I take a walk? Can I go secretly cry in the corner, which is fine. Crying's good for you. Can I go secretly laugh in the corner? Can I watch a stupid video on Instagram? Whatever it is really important. Writing things down, journaling on it. There's so many different things you can do, but just first thing, ask yourself. I think, can I get into breathing?
We're gonna,
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, no, that is definitely part of it. I think, we're trying to, while it's important to recognize your reactions, you also want to know what are your unhealthy reactions.
Yes.
Based on my build,
I am a stress eater, so I know that that's one place that if I go and eat something really unhealthy for me, that is an indicator for me that I'm under a lot of stress, and I've been under a lot of stress. But not only knowing the unhealthy ones, but then how do I identify the healthy ones? Like I should, if it weren't 112 outside, I'd just go take a 10-minute walk, but you still got all of those limits in there. But setting boundaries, I think, is a big one. And I know that it's hard to do that when it's your own pet. It really is. One of the phrases that I use a lot, and it goes through my head a lot, is they're not giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. And that one has pulled me back from the brink more than once. But kind of being able to set that boundary, I don't have to hold up Half Moon's butt when he gets a drink of water. I don't have to do that because he will scuttle right up and get his own drink of water. But by me thinking that I have to do that, I need to set some boundaries on myself. My friends tell me that I have this horrible disease that's called overly helpful disease. And it gets in the way a lot. And that is definitely one where I have to set boundaries and limits for myself. And that's
Yeah, boundaries are really important. I'm a yes man. I'm like, yes, I'll do it, and then I regret it immediately after I say. So even with that, because if you're already overwhelmed and then you're telling 10 other people, oh yeah, I'll do this or I can take care of that, that's equally as hard. And you've got, so you just have to find your healthy boundaries. Some people have no little imaginary line around their body. Some people have rigid line where they don't let anybody in. So learning how to find that perfect imaginary line. Yeah.
And I think it's hard to do in the moment, and I think that's why it's important to have a general idea of your stress plan and how you're going to deal with it. I can remember very clearly a couple of years ago trying to work on something in my office. It was a Sunday morning, and I had a client coming up, and she had a small, adorable 5-year-old poodle who would not stop yapping. Yap. And I'm trying to finish an email before I go into the appointment, and it just got in my head. And I walked in, and I'm thinking, just pick the dog up, do something. And she's in tears. She had been pushed to the point where she didn't know what to do. She wanted to help them. She wanted to do absolutely the right thing, but didn't have a stress plan, didn't have the recognition that we're trying to share today. And by the time she left, we had a better plan in place. But you get pushed to that point. Again, that comes with the trigger stacking and being late for work. You got a nail in your tire. All of these things happen, and being ready to deal with those can really help you a long way. So let's talk. You want to go?
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah. One more thing we're gonna talk about a little bit more, but I just want to talk about compassionate self-talk because that's another part of your plan, and that's really just like touching a part of your body or your heart or something, and just being like, hey, chill out. It's okay. Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little more, but that's another part. Just like do it wherever you're standing.
Just do whatever you need to do. And we are going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. And just so it doesn't feel like you're drinking from a fire hose here, everybody with your thank you email for joining us today is going to receive a copy of the full presentation that she does. There will be a significant packet of handouts that are usually part of this presentation. So if you didn't register, please just type raise my hand in the comments, and we'll make sure we get it over to you. But yeah, so you're going to have all of this because I know it's a lot to take in. So let's talk about self-compassion. So what's the difference? Tell me how that works.
So self-compassion is something everybody must do. Dr. Kristen Neff, she's a researcher, and I think it's selfcompassion.org. She does a lot of research on self-compassion. I mean, there will be a couple handouts that you all get today about that. But I had to write a few things down because there's so much to talk about it with it, and I just wanted to make sure I got it right. So maybe Kate can talk for 2
Sure.
seconds.
So we're talking about things like self-kindness, which was kind of
Yeah.
what you were talking about before. So being kind to yourself, giving yourself a little bit of grace when you get in those moments and you feel like you're overwhelmed. I mean, Kathy and I have a running joke that, you know, when we forget to do something or one of the dog's pads gets too filled and too much pee in and we forgot to do something, it's like, you know, Mother of the Year award winner right here, giving yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of space, because not only are you caring for your dog, but you're probably working, you're taking care of a lot in the house, you've got a lot of other responsibilities in the world around you. Give yourself a little break. Got a lot going on, and just, you know, be kind to yourself when you're talking to yourself. So tell us more about
Yeah,
that.
sorry, thank you. Yeah, so most of us are hard on ourselves. I'm competitive by nature. So anytime I do something wrong, I just am on myself. And sometimes I lose sleep over the stupidest things. And I'm like, gosh, you're so silly. But I need to learn, like, I'm allowed to make mistakes. So think of self-compassion as talking to a friend. So if you two are best friends and you're trying to console her, you would want to talk to yourself that way. So again, like, most of us are hard on ourselves, but we're not going to be mean to our friend, right? We're gonna, it's okay, it's okay. So do the same for yourself. That's really important. It allows us to fill up so we have more to give. So if we can be compassionate, know that we're making a difference, know that we're allowed to make mistakes and work with challenges, that helps calm us down a little bit. There's a great, one of the handouts, it's kind of a few pages, but one of the things, so when I was talking about touching yourself and just being like, it's okay, that's one of the research projects that Dr. Kristen Neff works on. So there's a whole thing in there about that. And some people might think it's kind of silly to say this out loud, but just say it to yourself. You could put your hand over your heart and you can just say, okay, this is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment and know that it's okay. And may I give myself the compassion that I need. And you can, like I said, touch your wrist, your arm, your heart, and just kind of say those words to yourself and be like, it's okay, I'm fine. And that just gives your body a chance to just kind of slow down before you react or anything like that. And that could be your 10-minute walk away or whatnot. But the physical touch also activates your parasympathetic nervous system. So you really want to treat yourself with care versus criticism, recognize imperfections. It's all part of being human, right? We're all human. And then just maintaining a balanced awareness of all the painful things that can happen to us. So that's when you just take that moment and just tell yourself, it's okay. We are making a difference, no matter what it is.
Exactly. And that's, you know, and we're not, I think another big piece of that is that we're not the only ones happening to. Sometimes one of the things I hear a lot from clients that come and see me is that they feel like they're in it alone. They feel like they're the only one. And they don't understand that that's just what it feels like. That's not what it is. You're not alone in this process. There are other people who are going through it or have gone through it, who may be going through it right now. So finding your community is important. Finding your tribe. Who are your folks that can be around you, that can be helpful. Finding that support system, I think, is one of the most important things that you can do. And I think you can find it in people that are going through similar situation, are going through similar changes. Because one of the things that I think makes it most difficult in working with a dog with mobility challenges, especially a senior dog with mobility challenges, is that their body changes every day. And that is just a basis, a fact of nature. The dog you have today is probably not the dog you had yesterday or the one you're going to have tomorrow. So staying present and being mindful, which is behind a lot of what I think Gina has been talking about, is being mindful of the changes and the fact that guess what? You're not the most important thing in this world. You don't get to control everything else that happens. Any other control freaks in the room? Yeah, okay, a lot of us are. So you don't get to control that. You don't get to control the rate at which your dog's body changes. Believe me, if I could, I would have a whole passel of dogs in there because I'd never leave one, never lose one. But I don't get to control that. And being okay with letting that go is really important. And that kind of brings us to the whole big picture of things. You know, your dog, your relationship with your dog, the health of your dog, their mobility, that's all part of the bigger picture of your world. For me, it's one of the most important pieces of the biggest picture in the world, but it is part of the bigger picture. So allowing yourself to see the big picture, you don't get so microscopic on what's happening to you or happening with you and your dog right now. So opening up the blinders a little bit, let's see what else is happening, because guess what? There could be something good happening on the outside. So feed that, you know, how many of you have flown recently? You know, the whole airline talk, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you try to help someone beside you. You got to fill your own cup. That's absolutely true in this situation. And I think a lot of that comes to healthy coping strategies. So I know there are a lot of them. You know, there's anybody in here journal? Does anybody journal? Okay, journal's a hard one. I don't, by the way. I think about it, but I don't actually write it down. So, you know, you have, there are different types of spirituality. I mean, it doesn't have to be a religion. It doesn't have to be a prayer. It can be a meditation. So different things along that line. Dancing, running,
camping, laughing, going out, hiking, finding that group of friends or family that you can have a good time with. However it is. I wanted to also mention, mindfulness is very important, and that's part of that healthy coping. So just realizing where you are in the moment, where are your feet, you know, right now, and just really paying attention. There's so much research on mindfulness too. There's so many things out there that you can practice, but that's a really big one. And then practicing gratitude. I think that's so important. When I first started talking about compassion fatigue, I learned about something called 3 good things. And it's basically talking about 3 good things that happened to you what happened that day, and following up with why. Why did this happen? Why is this important to me? So when I learned about this, I'm not gonna say every night, but most nights at our kitchen table with my husband and the kids, we'd like go around and say like, what are 3 good things that happened to us today? Because we get kind of like tunnel vision, and we just kind of focus on the bad. All the bad kind of sticks in our brain like Teflon. It's called a negativity bias. But if you can kind of open up and talk about what you're grateful for, think about what you're grateful for, write it down, put it on your mirror. Like that just helps you. My mom always says, my mom's 82, and somebody will always say, well, how are you, Marilyn? And she'll be like, well, I'm better than most people, and I'm grateful. And so I always really like when she says that. She says it a little bit better, but she doesn't.
She's mom.
Yeah, she
Mom,
doesn't
say everything better.
always complain. But I don't know. I'm really big on gratitude and just kind of opening up. I think it's really important. It helps us kind of like, all right.
And I think that's really important, not only just to do for yourself, but to also do for what were the 3 good things that went on with my dog today. Like I will have, let's say Joey. Okay, Joey's my new little chorky kind of Yorkie Chihuahua hairy thing. He's about 4 and 3 or 4, and he's in a cart. Well, he pushed himself into a stand for the first time a few days ago after he swung the cat. And I was really excited to see that. And it's almost like I can see, like I take the sunglasses off, right? The light comes into your eyes and you can see more. I'll do the same thing with Half Moon. I can't tell you how excited I got the day he came to me and barked at me and whined. And I was like, do you have to go outside, buddy? And he's urinary fecal incontinent, so he shouldn't be able to feel this. And he turned and went to the door. And we went to the back door. He went over to his whole spot where he peed and he stopped. He was able to experience that. And I know that seems like not a big deal, but when you've had to express a dog for 9 years, when he tells you that he's got to go, we'll take it. That's a win, right? So looking for those wins wherever you can find them, instead of looking for, oh, how did I, not get myself caught in this trap, or how do I avoid danger or avoid something bad? How about we look for the good stuff that happened? I mean, this seminar today, this is a good thing. This is a good thing for me because I get to have all of you here. I get to work with Gina, who I really adore, and I get to talk about a topic that's super important to me. So this is definitely one of my 3 for the day, and I'm happy about it, and I might just write something today because that feels good. But writing and journaling isn't for everyone, but if it is for you, great, that's fantastic. But find that thing that works for you. In fact, one of my dear friends, got me an early birthday present, and it was a big box of Legos. And let me tell you, I was a Lego fan as a kid. I'm gonna go put some Legos together today too, because that's one of my favorite things. And I can have my dogs around me, and I get to really feel good about it and know that they're happy too. So that fills my cup.
And that can be also kind of all right, my 10-minute break. I'm gonna go put some Legos together or work on a puzzle because you're not thinking about what's happening.
Right.
All right. So
I'm going to do that, and it's pretty amazing. You find answers when you do that. It's called I think somebody calls it sharpening your saw or sharpening your tool. Don't try to think about something. It's like, I don't know how old y'all are, but sometimes I'll try to think of something so hard, but if I stop trying to figure it out, it'll come to me. So we all have challenges in taking care of our dogs, whether that's how do I fix his wheelchair, or how do I keep his feet from getting scraped up when he drags on the floor? Those answers start to come to you. Maybe for you, it's, okay, how do I deal with this anxiety of knowing that he's not going to be with me forever? Relaxing and finding the positive and finding solutions in that space as well. So let's talk about self-care a little bit. We kind of went a little out of order on that, but let's talk more about like self-care, what that means, some tools. And this is where you just talk about reading. Yay! All right, so let's talk about self-care.
So self-care is also one of the most important things that we can do. How many of us are bad at it?
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say bad, but we've got challenges, right? Self-care again is putting your oxygen mask on so that way you can help others. Self-care can be a lot of the stuff that we've talked about already, whether it's journaling, this or that. It can be so important because, as I talked about earlier with some of the symptoms, if we're not caring for ourselves, then we're not taking care of who we need to take care of. It's really our ethical responsibility. Like, it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others. I mean, that's the big takeaway. And I don't know, there's just,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that we could talk about, but I think a lot of the stuff that we kind of mentioned is important. Are we talking about resiliency or?
We're not. But if you think about self-care, it really is at the foundation. It's all about basic needs.
Yeah.
Are you getting enough rest? Are you eating the right foods? Are you getting your exercise? Are you allowing yourself space to have those that spirituality, whatever form it takes in your life? Are you doing those kind of things? Because if you're not doing your Maslow basic needs and getting those taken care of, how do you think you're going to have the strength and the resiliency to be able to care for a dog who barks through an entire presentation? So how are you going to be able to do that? Yeah, this is what I live with on a daily basis, and Catherine has to put up with during the day. So what are those? Understanding and making sure that those are getting taken care of. And I think this is a good point to talk about the tools. So let's talk about the deep breathing exercises.
Yeah, so deep breathing. Does anybody practice meditation? Deep breathing? Yeah. Good. So that's also one thing. We've got our lungs with us all the time, right? Hopefully. And so that's something we can practice. So when you're starting to feel stressed or you're about to say something awful to somebody, take a minute. Some of the popular easy ones are 4 square breathing. So you're breathing in for 4 seconds, you're holding it for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, repeat. Some of us with bigger lungs, it might take a little bit more. There's also a 4-4-7. I mean, there's all kinds of breathing exercises, but for just think about stopping for a second before you react, before you do something you might regret, and just take a breath. Our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest. So that activates our parasympathetic nervous system versus our sympathetic nervous system, which is our stress type. So we want to activate our PNS. And then when you do that, that's kind of like the bottom of our brain here is also where your breathing and heart rate are, right? So when you're doing that, you're hitting that part first before you're hitting our emotional and management and all that stuff. So that just kind of gives you a second to breathe. I was doing that in the car here because I had a mishap and I was running late. And I just breathe.
Yes.
Otherwise, I work myself up. So breathing is really important. And for those of you who do meditation, I think you find that that's just like it really, really, really helps. But we can do that any time of day, anywhere, even before you go to sleep. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Dr. Andrew Weil. I went to a seminar a long time ago, and he talked about breathing for an hour and all the stuff he does. And he blows out air every night before he goes to sleep, and his wife thinks he's crazy and all this stuff. And anyway, breathing is one of the most important. Just taking a minute.
Yeah, and you can, if you're an active or it's hard for me to get myself to kind of settle down enough. So you can do an active breathing exercise that is take a Post-it note, square Post-it note, and you do your 4-4-4. So you can actually do your breathe in, take your finger, go down one side, hold for 4, and then we do a 4-4-8. And then you blow out for 2 seconds. So you can actually make it active rather than feeling more passive in the breathing piece. So if anyone, I think you had something here about Brene Brown. Does anyone know Brene Brown? Okay, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. She is a shame researcher, which sometimes that comes in handy when we're managing mobility challenge dogs. Because has anybody gotten a funny look when you walk your dog? I have actually had someone walk up to me and say, "Why?" And I wisely took a breath and turned around and walked away because I'm still here and not incarcerated. So yeah, I mean, we get, or you get to the point where it's like, I have done everything I can and I still didn't get it right. My dog still has this issue. She still has UTI, or she still has scrapes in her feet. What am I doing? Am I worthy to be this dog's mom? You know, there are times when you get there. But if you have a chance, Brene Brown, really, really like her a lot. Check her out as well. And the other thing, especially living in the desert, one of your best tools for self-care, drink water.
Yes.
Being dehydrated can lead to a lot of things, a lot of clouded thinking. You're not actually retaining some of the things you learned. You're not as forgiving of chihuahuas who bark a lot. So drinking the water is a big one. And I think the other one is music. Music is huge. Who doesn't love music? It doesn't matter what it sounds like. And on the beginning of that, if any of you have been in a session with me, I have embraced the tuning fork. So I use a tuning fork for a lot of vibrational work on the fascia of the dog. Well, the tone that I use is a C. It's 120 megahertz, whatever it is. But I will give myself a little hit of that. So I'll pop it on my knee and just hold it up to my ear, and I can literally feel my body go. I can feel it settle. So we all have something like that, right? We all have to find it and put it in your self-care toolkit, because it never fails to work. We've all, I mean, it's the very similar if you have a performing artist that you like. So let's say I like Darius Rucker. I'm 56. So Hootie and the Blowfish. Okay. He has what I call a money note. And everybody knows what his money note is. And it just, when I hear that, I can feel my body just settle. You know that. You know what that feeling is. So when you find that feeling, grab it, write it down, do whatever you have, and put that in that toolkit.
I guess it's the same way. When I used to work at PAC and I had a stressful day, instead of taking the freeway home, I would take Silver Bell home. But in order to separate my day from when I got home, I took the windy road home, but I did blast some really terrible music that I don't normally listen to, but it was my way of like, okay. And then just kind of using that music and that windy road to just be like, okay, I'm going to chill out. By the time I get home, I won't take it out on my husband or whatever. Right. So you can use music in different ways, I think, but I think more for chilling out is better. But.
Yeah. So like for you. Yeah.
Most of the time when I have a really best day at work or my day is crazy, I go and do body pump. So punching or continue punching sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The physical exercise. The comment was she goes and does a body pump workout, which involves a lot of punching bags and kicking and hitting, and no one gets hurt, but she feels a whole lot better when that happens. And that sometimes it is being able to add not only the mental part, but the physical exertion part to it as well, which is why that feels that way. So we'll get to questions and comments in a second. But yeah, so let's finish this up with talking about professional help and when it's time to do that.
Yeah, so when you're starting to feel just completely overwhelmed, one thing to think about, are you feeling hopeless? Are you like, nothing can change, nothing can help me, I'm just gonna give up. I'm gonna take this dog and I'm gonna take him to PAC, or I'm just going to give them to somebody else. Or you want to harm yourself. Maybe you're feeling so overwhelmed in other areas of your life and things are stacking up and you feel like I'm just going to hurt myself, harm myself, or maybe harm another living being or whatnot. So those are really important things. Suicidal thoughts, anything like that. Really, really, really try to find somebody. You can start with a friend, but when it comes to professional help, that's probably the most important if you're really feeling these terrible, terrible thoughts. And find professional help, because nobody wants to see you lose your life or hurt somebody or hurt yourself or anything like that. So really pay attention to those thoughts.
I will definitely say that you definitely want to seek help if you are experiencing those. It's okay to seek help before that. To say, you know what, I don't have the tools. I don't understand how to do the self-care. I can't make that for myself. I need someone to guide me to be able to do that. I think mental health care in this country has such a stigma to it that folks are less than willing to do it. I have a therapist. I'm very happy that I do. She's amazing. And it really keeps me centered and even, and I don't know what I would do without that. It gets a little dark in here occasionally. So it's nice to have someone to be able to shine a light on what's happening. So please do not shy away from that. Okay. Okay. So I hope this has been helpful.
And I would like to now open up the floor, and if anyone has any questions, yes.
As professional help, I had a list of 35 people, and the waiting list was 5 to 7 months long.
Yep. The waiting list for professional help
It
can
is,
be long. The other thing you can do in the meantime, there are now online therapists that do not have a long waiting list. I can't vouch for quality or how hard it is to do that over Zoom, but that can be an option as well. The other piece that you might look at, if you're not at the suicide thought element, is finding groups online of folks that are going through the same thing that you are. Sometimes they will have ideas and solutions or suggestions that you can try for tools.
I had a cat with cerebral hypoplasia, and there's a Facebook group for those that it's basically like having cerebral palsy, but in a cat form. But there are they can be a lot, but I'm glad I found that group because they were experiencing challenges and new things. And so that was really helpful for me. It wasn't professional help, but it was helpful
I'm
to
just
find
not a
that group.
computer person. I don't like computers.
Yeah.
She knows that.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to find something.
Yeah.
But way back the days, my law enforcement days,
Mhm.
I met her as a friend. She lived here, I was in California, but she was really good because I would call her up when I saw something that's too horrible.
Yeah.
Or something I had to do. And it's good to have, then we ended up getting married, so that's good.
Well, then there you go.
But she was always there, I mean, 3 o'clock AM, so I would call. She would just get on the phone and talk me down.
And and that's building
If I
that
could find a group,
network.
do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just- I'm a very good computer person.
Yes. Brooke?
I can handle the computer, okay, what I would have to overcome would be to ask for help. I was brought up in a family, deep south. You may give help, but you may never ask for help.
Yeah.
And I have never reached the point that I can ask for any kind of help, no matter how bad it was, no matter how, even when I was sitting in a foxhole in the Persian Gulf.
Yep.
I just said, I can do this. I put my head down and I did it.
And that is a very American,
Well, no,
strong
it's-
woman, Southern woman view, right?
Yeah.
And asking for help is
I can't do
huge.
it. I can't do it.
Okay, so you sometimes do it through action. So you're here for a reason.
I'm here, but I'm interested in the fact that what all these other people do, because when things go wrong, I have 2 solutions. You may listen to music. I go out, put my body behind the steering wheel of my Porsche
And
and turn on the goddamn engine. And the other thing I do is the swimming pool's out the back door. I have jumped in it, clothes and all, everything. I swim 250 laps a day, and I fix my covers. Thank you very much. But I can't ask you for help or anybody in this room, and I wouldn't go on social media if you gave me the whole blasted room.
Yeah.
Good.
Did I get another question over here? Somebody else have a question? Yes.
I don't know how to say this. How do you manage 3 dogs? Because where I, you know.
Yeah.
Where I was fine with 1 dog.
Yeah.
When the second one had challenges at the same time, and they were so different and so like, this dog needs this now, this dog over here needs this now, and then the healthy dog is staring at me like, when's my turn? How do you do that and not overwhelm yourself? How do you do that with years?
That's a really good question. I do it by having. Oh yeah. So the question was, how do I take care of 3 dogs that are mobility challenged and need my help? So one of the most important things I do is I have specific spaces in the house, and I have all my tools in the same place. So for all of my incontinent dogs, thankfully they're all under 25 pounds.
I have a baby changing table, and beside it I have a drawer. What are those things called? A little dresser, thin one that has all of their wraps in it. It has their collars. It has all of my supplies. On top, I've got my baby wipes that I need to clean them. Over here, I've got my stack of poop bags. Right over here, I've got a Chucks, which is like an under mattress protector. That's over top of the baby mattress, and we do it in shifts. So I know that Joey's going to be super easy, right? He's going to go out, and I know he's going to give me 2 poops, not just one. If you don't wait for the second one, you're going to get it anyway. So I know each of their little tricks, right? I know I have to pee half of it, and then I have to go do everyone else so that he can refill and we can pee again. So it's about staging. Is anybody familiar with the term mise en place?
What is the term?
Mise en place. Mise en place, if you know anything about a kitchen, mise en place is I should be able to reach over and get this knife over here, this cutting board here. Everything is in its place. And I know where everything is, and I can do it without having to think about it. That's how I do it. When we have to do every dog takes different pills. So we don't open up containers every day. We have daily pill keepers that have morning and evening, which is where they feed. So I don't have to do that. If I had to open pills every day, I would have probably already killed one of my dogs because I would have given them the wrong thing. So it's about having systems. It's about having systems, and it's about having a great partner and a great wife. I'm lucky. I have help and I have support at home. So it's really the 2 of us making it work. But that systems and a great partner are huge. And if you don't have a great partner, you better have good systems. So that's how I do that. Yeah. So yeah, you have to be. You really have to be, because I feel like that becomes trigger stacking. If you don't have your bills laid out, you don't have everything where it's going to be convenient to be able to care for your dog, that's when you get in trouble. That's when you start to get a little nervous. You feel yourself getting tight because you now have to go, now I have to go over here and get the stuff to clean up the poop. Now I have to go over here and get the bandages to wrap his feet. And now I have to go over here and get the new diaper. If you have everything where it needs to be, that lowers your stress because you don't get exasperated by what's not where it should be. I'm not nearly, I'm not gonna like when I look at my office, but I'm much more organized with my dogs and where their things are than I am my own things, which could tell me I need to take care of that. But yeah, much more organized in that way.
I just feel like it was always that, for me, where my head would get stuck is, when's the next one going to drop? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I've got a routine with this one, and then the idiot jumps off the couch and blows out the knee. So
Right.
now we've got that problem.
Right.
I'm looking at dog number 3, and don't you even think about it, and that just
Yeah. Getting stuck in your head about what's going to happen next, that's almost an element of anticipatory grief.
Yeah.
You're waiting for the next boot to drop. And that, I'd be willing to bet, is not a comfortable place to live. No. Okay.
It's
So
not.
that's one of
And
those
that's where it
where,
all snowballs.
yes, that's the one that like pushes down the accelerator on your stress, right? So that's where you look at the third one and go, what great thing are you going to do today and really mean it? We're going to go out and have a good walk, or I'm so glad you're eating good food now. You need to find the positive in what's happening, not only with the 2 that you're having to treat, but also with the one who's kind of hanging out. Now, the place that I get stuck, and I get stuck a lot with Helen and did a couple of years ago, is now I'm neglecting the healthy dog. And that becomes a real challenge. So if you have the opportunity to be able to do special one-off things with that healthy dog, I encourage you to do that. That's a way to kind of check in, because you know what happens if something happens to that third one. You're like, oh, I was paying attention to everybody else and I wasn't paying attention over here, and now something happened. So that helps you kind of cut that off
at the junction, right? It's like, nope, I've been checking in, I've been doing this, I've been spending quality time. And quality time may just be on the couch. For Helen and I, her favorite place in the whole world is to go to Mount Lennox, and we would drive up together. We still go up, but she brings her emotional support dog Andy along because Helen is 15-year-old boxer. She's got some very significant and serious hip dysplasia, so she is not moving as well as she once did. She also has what's called the canine cognitive dysfunction. She has canine Alzheimer's, which she takes medication for. So being able to spend special time with her is very important to me. She is the dog that's gotten everyone else through it, and now I keep telling myself it's her turn. I need to pay attention to Helen, but being drawn in multiple directions is definitely a challenge. Who here has multiple dogs? Yeah, that is definitely a hard one. Making sure that you're checking in not only with your mobility challenge, your challenging dogs, but also your healthy dogs and yourself. Because if you guys are anything like me, I'm checking in on 4 dogs, and then instead of me being number 5, I skip back to the front and go back to the dogs again. So taking that deep breath, saying, okay, it's, if I need to do something good for me today. I need to do that right now. Even if it's 10 minutes and I can go sit and bang my tuning fork and put it by my ear, that's going to be something good to do.
That's the hardest part of any of this is using the tools and just going for it. That's the hardest part. Right. And so learning, even if you just take it baby steps, just the first, maybe today's breathing, maybe tomorrow's talking to a friend, just anything, just baby steps. If you have a hard time, some of this stuff and making sure you're good.
And it doesn't have to be a huge written out plan. Yeah. It can just be one thing a day. It doesn't have to be this big cohesive plan that somebody put together to you that you have to do, 6, 7, 8 things a day. It's not about that. It's about recognizing and taking action in the moment. And then that starts to build the habit. Because if you have to think about it, it's probably not going to happen. It feels like one more thing you have to do. And, as the mom to a mobility challenged dog, I have got plenty of things to do throughout the day, including peeing and pooping 4 dogs 3 to 4 times a day. And it's not that big of a deal, but it is a break in what else I'm doing. It's a break in the flow. All right, who else? Anybody else have any questions? Everybody good? Okay, oh yeah, got one more.
Question is what you were talking about. This is really weird question. You got the mobility challenge dog or the dog that has issues, and you have the healthy dog.
Yeah.
Does the healthy dog feel that they're getting ignored or not as loved as much because there's so much attention going to the less healthy dog?
You're killing me, Smalls. Yeah, the question is there, does the healthy dog feel like they're being left out? I'm gonna go out on a limb on here and say no. And the reason I say that is if they want the attention, I feel like they're gonna come up and engage with you. And I don't think dogs process emotions like that. Yeah. So if Gussie sees Callie getting petting, he's probably going to walk up and want to get petted. He's not going to sit over there and pout because, well, you're going to pet me. Callie does everything. She's the big sister. I think it's totally unfair. I can't really see Gussie doing that. I can't see it.
See, it's a bandage on Achilles that starts limping.
Yes. Well,
Wow.
SEMA was a bit of a special case in so many ways. I don't think so. I think that's something that we project onto them. And I think that's something that are not projected. Leave it there. They're going to ask. Dogs are really good at this. They're going to ask for what they need. pay attention to that in the moment.
Mine just ignores me. Don't even look at me. It's fine.
And that, and every dogs have different personalities, right? Just like we do. One dog is not like the other. And I think we really find that out when we try to treat every dog the same way. And it doesn't work out because every dog is different. Every dog has different experiences. They've experienced their world, nature and nurture at work here. So there is no dog that's going to experience the same thing as another dog. So meeting them where they are, which is a big piece of what we're talking about here, is meet your dog where they are and stay there with them, sit in that moment with them. But also remember that you need to do that for yourself as well. All right, any other questions? All right, great. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Keep an eye out on, we'll be launching our new website soon. So check out the event page. We do have a presentation coming up in September that will be about pet loss and grief. So very excited about that one, oddly enough. October, we're going to have a game night here, board game night. So if you can make it, keep an eye out for that one. And also in November, we're going to do Dia de los Muertos event, November 2nd. And later in November, we're going to do a seminar on canine cognitive dysfunction. So keep an eye out. We'll have more of these coming along soon. Thank you.
Will they all be Zoom for at least?
Yes, they will be available online. Yes. Yes. Thanks. All right, everybody.